You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey commiserate about the slow but ever happening march toward death is what's
Good
going
Lord.
on off mic.
Good Lord. Yes.
Now get it right or
Yes.
pay the price.
Well, we're also reactivating all of my camp trauma these past couple weeks.
Has it been helpful for you?
No, it hasn't.
Shit.
It hasn't. All it did was make me nitpick about this camp and same as last week. Last week I was like, why are they intense? This week I'm like, there's like 3 people in that cabin. That's not
There are
realistic.
like 12 kids at this camp.
I know. Like, there's supposed to be like 12 per cabin in
Yeah.
bunk beds. Like, there's just not enough people here.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they that it's like a sham of a camp where some sort of social experiment is happening.
Well, you have to watch all the episodes. I'm just kidding. That's not a reveal, though that would rule if it were.
That would be really cool if it was.
Yeah.
I'm Jodie.
I'm Andrea.
And we watched...
Salute your shorts.
This is such a weird departure for me. This is like not the type of TV. I mean, okay, I watched Nickelodeon when I was in my like preteen, like middle school years for sure. But this is just this is the next generation for me.
Well, and it's such a departure, especially Salute Your Shorts. The show is very silly, but it's also really interesting because I think up until these shows, Salute Your Shorts, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Pete and Pete, kids like sitcoms were usually like not even sitcom, kids live action television was often stuff like we talked about last week a little bit. You can't do that on television. Those kinds of like multicam soundstage shot shows that were like more like a lot of like sketch stuff.
Yeah. Or they were sort of like heartfelt sitcoms, like Punky Brewster,
exactly.
or Different Strokes, or that whole generation of television that I was a watcher of.
Right. But these shows really feel like they're kind of made like, and obviously these shows aren't made by kids, but they really feel like these are the shows that, at least maybe I'm saying this because this was the perfect, like these were the shows I grew up on, but they feel like the kinds of shows kids of that age wanted to be watching and would have made if they could have.
Yeah, and I literally put in my notes, this feels like it was cheap to make.
$180,000 an episode, which is nothing.
Yeah. And yeah, it kind of feels that way, but that's okay. Like, some of the stuff that I watched as a kid looks so bad now, but was so enchanting and amazing at the time,
Yeah, there's a shift for sure.
Yeah, it feels a little bit slapdash or something, which is very much the vibe of Nickelodeon at that time also, though.
I think that's what I mean too about like it feels like I almost, when I picture these shows being made, I almost picture like kids behind the cameras too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and that was the whole vibe of You Can't Do That on Television, even though it was more of a sketch show. It was still that like the kids are running the show badly, sort of vibes.
Yeah.
So
I will say though, it's not created by children. It's created by Steve Slavkin. It's based on a book called Salute Your Shorts, Life at Summer Camp, which is more of like a guy. It's like I'll drop a link to it, to the Internet Archive of it, because they've got part of it at least available. So you can see. It's like an illustrated guide.
Yeah, it's got illustrations. It's like...
There's no like characters. There's no narrative. It's like a tell-all expose to strike terror into the hearts of mothers, camp directors, and the kid who puts saran wrap on the toilet seat is the subheading.
So I should have probably read this before going to camp.
Yeah, you would have.
I would have had a heads up.
That's right.
1986. Actually, that's about the year. I think that's probably maybe the year I went to camp. It was somewhere around then.
Funny.
Yeah, it was definitely somewhere around there. Excuse me. Yeah, it's cute. It's got that same sort of like, the illustrative style is interesting. It's like, I'm not a student of illustration, but it's very like a kid drew it, but better kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And that again is sort of what the
show,
the show feels like.
Yeah. Like a kid made it, but slightly more like, more
in a way that I really love.
Yeah, I had fun with this. I didn't connect with it as much as the last one, the Are You Afraid of the Dark? I think only because that one had a female protagonist, to be completely honest with you. Like, I am not a huge lover of the obnoxious boy character in these shows that's, like, kind of irredeemable, at least in this episode.
You're talking about Budnick, who is...
Yes.
I remembered him as being the, like, camp cool kid, not the... just absolute bully, and I think he does get. I think they soften him as it goes, but he's such a jackass.
He's
an
asshole.
Episode.
He's an asshole, like openly, like doesn't care.
No,
about
he's got
anyone.
A perfect haircut, though.
I have thought for a very long time. This may be one of my most delusional thoughts about myself, that I could wear a mullet and
Jodie,
I could rock a mullet.
There's only one way to find out.
I know, and I'm not probably ever going to do it.
Okay, well,
but.
Death is coming for us all, so you might as well live now.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, but I do think I could rock this haircut with slightly better bangs.
He's the perfect bully. He's a ginger with a mullet.
Yeah. Yep.
Bobby Budnick.
What happened to him?
He's still doing stuff, voice acting. Mostly. Weirdly, this cast, most of them didn't go on to do much acting afterward. A lot of them had like a lot of them did some voice acting for sure, but Budnick is definitely the most like still acting. He was the voice of his Stoop Kid on Hey Arnold and Montana Max on Tiny Toon Adventures. So that's the big one.
It's funny. He looked familiar to me, and then I realized I literally just brought up Different Strokes. I watched Different Strokes.
Okay,
he
was like
he was on that,
a recurring character on that. Too.
Yeah,
he's also in Terminator 2, Judgment Day. So he's still around. He does a ton of voice acting, and then also Camp Counselor Lee. He's another one who's done a ton of anime. But for the most part, like I think I was telling you, Dina is a lawyer.
Right.
Zizi is like does some kind of work in like environmental. She's like environmental nonprofit work, I think, which is, you don't know as much about her character yet, but that's like Zizi's whole thing is caring for the environment. She's our tree hugger for sure.
Danny Cooksey Budnick also is in a band called Bad for Good, or was in a band that came out in 1992. He's also was in a band called Arbuckle.
Yep.
Yep. And worked with a Western band called Shelter Dog. So he's been a musician most of his life.
Yeah.
Oh, he was in an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, too?
Which episode Are You Afraid of the Dark is he in?
The Tale of the Guardian's Curse. Ooh, he was in an after-school special, too. I love an after-school special. God, somebody needs to do a podcast about after-school specials. Has somebody done that?
I'm sure somebody has, but who knows if it's good.
Well, you're wrong about occasionally it deals with those things, actually.
No.
He was a voice on Invader Zim.
Oh, yeah. Ton of stuff.
He played Keith. He played Melvin. He played Dirge. Plus other people. Oh, I love Invader Zim.
And then you haven't met Pinsky because he's season 2. He replaces Mikey. And he's way more famous at this point for being the lead guitarist of Rilo Kiley.
Oh, yes.
So now, which I really love because that means Rilo Kiley is like kind of like a child star band, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think everybody knows that Jenny Lewis was a child actor. She's specifically the ones that she always gets like cited for are True Beverly Hills and The Wizard. But she was in a bunch of other stuff.
Danny Cooksey was also in an episode of The Twilight Zone in 1985,
which is the reboot. So
I'm
less
excited about that.
I know less about that series than the original, which I have seen so much of and so many times and love so much. So not a whole lot. I will say something that seems really nice is they do occasionally get back together for stuff like Comic-Con and all.
I saw that.
This show seems like everybody had a great time. Like you always fear for the child stars,
especially at Nickelodeon now, considering the horrifying expose that came out recently.
Exactly. I think part of it is this is very early in Nickelodeon's a career as a network.
Yeah.
But
Well, it
or at
also
least for
seems
these
like-
shows. But they also, yeah.
It also seems like it depends on who at the network was involved with your
Right.
show.
Yeah.
Like,
And this
how
show
it
seems
went.
like, for one thing, it only got 2 seasons, like I said. For another, it was shot some on a soundstage, like the interiors, but most of it was shot on location at Franklin Canyon Park and Griffith Park Boys Camp. So I think just being away from the rest of it. And in fact, that's why the show didn't get more than 2 seasons. I think this is so interesting, is that they moved all the kids out to LA, and then they wanted to then move them to Orlando for season 3, and they were all already out in LA and didn't want to move. And so between that and apparently budget stuff, but apparently a major factor in the show not continuing was that the kids didn't want to, probably their parents, but whatever, didn't want to then relocate a second time to Orlando.
Yeah, it seems like the creator, Steve Slavkin, also was, from the limited knowledge that I have, was probably part of the reason these kids had an okay time, because apparently he walked out of filming to protest Nickelodeon denying the cast raises for potential 3rd and 4th seasons.
Yeah, he seems like a pretty just genuinely good guy, because I don't think he was like a big TV guy before this, so maybe that's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, because he walked out to protest and literally never came back. The final 2 weeks of 2nd season filming were completed without him. So yeah, it's nice to have somebody actually standing up for kid actors on their show.
He's also the voice of Khan over the loudspeaker, who you, of course, never see. But the one doing the, like...
That's classic.
Activities this, today are a scary story about the... whatever, the Camp Board bingo in the lodge.
Yeah.
He's
yeah,
that
no,
guy.
that's a classic, having the disembodied voice be somebody from the... like showrunner to director to like random PA.
Yeah, I think that's really fun. He gets some good jokes.
Yeah.
I think the show is genuinely funny is the other thing. I think there's some genuine laughs for me anyway.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm really bad at faking
Why don't want you to
enthusiasm.
lie on our podcast?
No, I had a good time. I
Listeners,
wouldn't say
we
I
can't
laughed out
trust
loud.
Jodie, apparently.
Yeah. No, I had a good time. I can't say that I laughed out loud, but I enjoyed myself. I know that theme song. I've heard it 1,000 times, even though I've never seen the show.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think I was just in a headspace where I was like, A, comparing this to other stuff we've watched that was more geared towards me, and B, like, even comparing it to last week, thinking about, like, I ended up being kind of a Grinch, like nitpicking things about the camp. Like I said, there's like 10 campers total. Like there's like one bunk bed. I just was like, what is happening?
Nickelodeon sitcom.
This is not accurate to the summer
features-
camp experience in the 1980s and 90s. There's no journalistic integrity here. Yeah,
That's
it really
so
bothered
funny.
me.
That's so funny.
It's dumb. But
You didn't laugh at... I need you to understand, I'm not laughing because I think the joke is funny. I'm laughing that when Budnick says
she can't even get through it.
you bought it hook, line, and stinker. I just cut one.
No, I'm
so
sorry.
It's so funny that they wrote that joke. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think a fart joke in general is funny, but there's
Right.
something so funny about them including that. Like,
can we go back to a conclusion we came to almost a year ago at this point, probably, which is that you are the John Candy of this podcast and I am the Molly Ringwald.
yeah, Molly Ringwald would not do well at the summer camp.
She would not. She would not. She would write letters home to her parents saying, please come get me. I'm going to die if I have to go on this camp out. And I think that might have something to do with your reaction to the fart joke versus my reaction to the fart joke.
I just want to be very clear. I don't think the fart joke is funny. I think the inclusion of the fart joke is funny.
That's very meta of you.
Thank you
but
so much. Hook, line, and stinker.
yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah, I don't think I laughed out loud. I didn't have a bad time, though. I mean, like, The actors were fun. I liked you. You had texted me when you were watching it, which was before I did, that you'd forgotten there was like some gender stuff in there. And I was like, oh, cool, a tomboy. Like we have we have a girl not wanting to be girly, which I always appreciate.
But it's her big... Okay, so this episode, it is either episode 2 or 3. It depends on where you look. I don't remember if I finished the thought earlier, which it could also be the name of our podcast. But weirdly, not every episode is available now. And I can't figure... I'm sure there's some... I don't know what, because they don't use music. They have like a composer, so it's not like they're licensing music. So I don't know who has like what rights issue or what is getting in the way of not having every episode available. But so it is either episode 2 or 3, depending on where you look, and I'm not totally sure what the issue is there. Heartbreakingly, my absolute favorite episode is unavailable. You can find it on YouTube, but the quality, and maybe Dailymotion, but the quality is terrible. And it's one where Mikey and Budnick fake being sick, and they get to go hang out in the like nurse's cabin, and it's just a perfect episode. And I think about it like once a week. But but the good news is this is the episode we would have watched anyway, and I think whether you loved it or not,
And I see why we watched it. Yeah,
and you'll
100%.
see way even more when we watch I Saw the TV Glow, but it's already pretty clear, I think. But all that to say, so it's either episode 2 or 3 in the series, and they're telling a ghost story.
Yeah, kind of discombobulated ghost story. I mean, it's a very simple premise. But it's one of those, like, throughout the episode, you're like, maybe it's this person, maybe it's that person. Like, it escalates. You're like, like when he's in the woods. Well, we can talk about the whole thing. But it's like constantly escalating the, like, idea. But it's a very simple idea.
Yeah. And the story...
An industrial accident. This is an argument for OSHA. Like last week, it was an environmental parable. This is about labor relations, labor rights.
Yeah.
Oh, before we start, can I just briefly point out that the word is jabroni?
Well, no, this is not before we start. We'll get there.
Okay, because I got really upset about that.
Important.
Okay, because that really bothered me as a Jersey person.
That's not a side note.
Okay, good.
This is
good.
The show.
I'm glad that that's not something that I'm just getting upset about for no reason.
When I was making sure this is the episode I wanted to watch,
I
think I said to you, I'm 5 seconds in, I already know this is the right one.
Yeah.
It's Blair Witch Project.
Say more.
So the first like 15 seconds of this episode is POV, black and white cam.
Oh, yes,
in the woods.
You're right. Yep. I had already kind of forgotten about that because I got so focused on the mispronunciation of a very important word.
And the first shot we see is somebody from the back.
Yeah. No,
so
you're right.
My argument is that Blair Witch Project
ripped
is
off
directly...
Salute Your Shorts.
Yeah, or at least it's paying homage.
Yeah.
And so we get the sort of like documentary style introduction, which is... I don't think it ever happens again. So I don't know. It's a weird... I like it. But I thought it was an interesting choice and also gives us a nice little tie-in. But as you said, Budnick is hilariously carving that Ugly, the camp counselor, there's only one, is a loser into a tree.
Yeah.
For no reason other than the fact that he's a bully. But then I love that when Ugg shows up, Bud's like, I just found this awful thing somebody carved into a tree. But you're right. He says, so everybody will know what a
jabroni. I wrote down jabroni, but he pronounced it weird.
He says like jumbroni.
There's no R. That was what fucked me up. Wait,
Jumboni, he says.
Okay, because I was like, what are you saying, sir?
Because there is an M and there isn't an R. Yeah. And it's not like jabroni has evolved. It's not like it was, it has evolved. Like that's not, but I mean like, it's not like it evolved from a word jamboni.
No. Wait, what is the etymology of jabroni? Wait, I need to have the...
I've looked it up. I'm sure I have notes on it somewhere.
Okay. Jabroni. According to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who popularized the term, he borrowed jabroni from the Iron Sheik, who used the word backstage. The term had also been used by Scott Hall, Hulk Hogan, and other members of WCW, and Steve Austin while in ECW. It's a specialized rendition of the wrestling term jobber, one who loses to make the other wrestlers look better, so a heel. It is perhaps a humorous, pseudo-Italianized form of it.
That's why it feels like such a Jersey
It's a Jersey
word
thing,
to
yeah.
me.
Well, yeah, and I mean, everyone I knew was obsessed with wrestling when I was a kid. See popular Italian words in the American lexicon, e.g. macaroni, pepperoni, zamboni.
Right.
But compare American slang / dialectical jaboni, naive person, immigrant, hoodlum, fool, first attested in 1990 of unclear origin.
What do they mean? The origin is salute your shorts.
Exactly. Wait, this is Wikipedia or Wiktionary, excuse me. But jaboni.
I've been screaming for the last half hour. I just realized.
I know. Surmised in a 1994 Los Angeles Times article to be from Italian-American slang, Italian jabone, self-important fool, from Piedmontese jambone, from the we need Mike D on here, from delectable jambone, hambone, ultimately from the French jambon, ham. First, oh my God, it goes way back. It may also be derived from Italian caprone, stupid person, literally goat. So we might be mad about something that is actually a side quest of the actual word jabroni.
This is fascinating that jabroni kind of comes from...
Welcome to our linguistics podcast,
it's
the readers.
Yeah. It's like a melding of jambone and jobber.
Yes.
Or jobber being repurposed, like jambone being repurposed with jobber to make jabroni.
Wait, so jabroni is the modern form of jaboni, American slang used to mock someone somewhat vaguely, at least since 1931. The online etymology dictionary defines a jaboni as a naive person, immigrant, or hoodlum. So it's racist. Cool.
Well, yeah, it all is. Everything is.
Huh.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, there's apparently the word appeared in a novel in 1967 by Thomas Taylor.
It's funny that it has been so... maybe like you said, maybe if we had Mike D here, he'd be like, oh yeah, we were all saying that before we were saying jabroni.
Yeah.
But popular culture would have you believe that jabroni is the word.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought. I have since been corrected by the internet.
Wow. Justice for Bobby Budnick, huh?
Justice for Bobby Budnick. I was so mad at him.
Yeah.
And you know what? I take it back. I'm always willing to take in new information and modify my thinking.
Especially if it's interesting. That's interesting.
Yes.
If it were boring, I might forget, but I love to know that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, so one can be a jabroni and a jaboni.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fascinating.
Wow.
Ugg is a jaboni.
Yes. I love being so mad about something and then being so wrong.
That's a New Jersey story, I think.
Yeah.
So that's there at the beginning for us. It does come back at the end. It's a thoughtful show. It's carefully plotted. But we kind of forget about that. It's sort of like treated as a cold open. And then, as I said, Khan tells us that there'll be a ghost story in the lodge. And Budnick, for some reason, is the one who tells it.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, it's, it's a real, like, a labor rights issue because this poor guy, apparently, his only job, Zeke the Plumber, is to clean out the toilets. And that's what Dina says. So it is a horror story? Come on.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That was fair. Although it felt a little bourgeoisie to me. A little class conflict.
Right. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
A worker.
How nice for her that she'll never have to clean a... Yeah. She is our, like, rich girl. And then we learn the story about Zeke the Plumber. He cleans the toilets at camp. But it's pretty, like, well-suited work for him because he can't smell.
Right.
Because he doesn't have a nose.
Right.
Because he's ex-military. And it got bitten off by a parrot in the Philippines.
Don't trust birds, man.
Don't trust birds. But I love that he's that it's a military thing. It wasn't
Yeah.
just, he could have been on vacation, but it bit off by a
No.
parrot in the Philippines. Such a funny way to lose your nose. And then he's out digging one day. He hits a gas line. And because
See?
he can't
Industrial accident.
Exactly. And then there's a good bit here because then Donkey Lips, we're just going to deal with the names of these kids. Budnick, Sponge, because he's a nerd, soaks stuff up like a sponge. He's got a huge clunky computer, like laptop.
That thing is like, yeah.
So funny.
He's sitting on the bed with it. I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
And he's Budnick, or Donkey Lips cuts in and he's like, he made a big mistake and lit a match. And then Budnick's like, who's telling the story?
story. Yeah.
He made a big mistake and lit a match.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it gets blown to smithereens, and the only thing left. And then Donkey Lips cuts in again. He's like, it's a bloody hatchet. And then they turn it, and it's
a plunger.
the cursed plunger.
Yeah.
And now 2 of them have touched it.
Yeah. Which
So now
to
they're
me,
cursed.
like, cursed or not, the amount of times a plunger is just handed around or put on people's faces. I'm not a germaphobe, but that is not okay.
Is nasty.
That is not okay.
Even
Like,
just
that's a horror story in and of itself.
even a brand new plunger, just
Yeah,
vibes wise,
still
I
no.
wouldn't want near my face.
Nope. Absolutely not.
But that is theoretically
Yeah.
in the fiction, in the reality of this TV show, that is a plunger that has been used
Yes.
many
And
times.
also, I'm not to nitpick, but I'm going to nitpick. Why is he haunting the woods and chasing kids if the real problem is a parrot and an unmarked gas line?
Zizi says, what is this guy, the Freddy Krueger of custodians? Which, like, yeah. But also, Freddy goes after the kids, even though it was their parents who killed him.
Right.
It's like
but that's more connected than there was a gas accident on the grounds of this camp. Like, I don't know. I'm nitpicking, but I was like, what? Okay, sure.
Well, because it's got to be scary for the kids.
Yeah.
And so we get our first interaction with Zeke in Mikey's dreams. He wakes up to Zeke plunging. And now this is fascinating to me because I don't like how flippant you're being about that mask. Because when we talk about the images of my youth,
Childhood trauma.
Yeah. We talked about the witches from last week's episode. They're on there. Truly, number 1 on the list, Zeke the Plumber.
Really?
Above all else, Zeke the Plumber.
See, I think that's where watching it in your 40s is a bit different because I was just like, ew, but like not horrified. Meanwhile, my childhood trauma is watching the Poseidon Adventure when I was too young.
This stuff happens.
Yeah. Well, and all of these, like, it reminded me also of, like, you know, Friday the 13th and the mask on the face and Silence of the Lambs, the mask on the face. Like, there's something about that is horrifying.
Yeah. And hearing that muffled voice behind it.
Yeah. To me, it was a little bit silly that the mask also had a bad nose that was, like, bandaged. I was like, isn't the point of having a mask over your missing nose so that you have a pretend nose? But
you know
I guess
what's
not.
funny is in my head as a child, I don't think, maybe as a child I realized, but in my memory, you're not supposed to see that as a mask.
Right,
It's
it's
supposed
his
to be
face.
his face. But I don't
I get
think
that.
But I don't think that's what the show is implying. Because I don't
I
mean, it's
actually.
a cheap budget,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the mask ends up being important. The fact that it's a mask ends up being important at the end.
Right.
So important. It's crucial, okay,
Yes.
to your understanding of this narrative.
Yeah.
But he can see, he knows your deepest fears, which again makes him the Freddy Krueger of custodians.
Right.
And this is when I texted you. Well, I texted you a little later, but this is when the gender stuff starts kind of popping up because
you can't be a boy who needs a stuffed animal or sucks their
Mikey's
thumb.
biggest fear is
Yeah.
that his biggest fear
Yeah.
is that they'll find out about Harry the Hippo
Yeah.
and that he sucked his thumb. We're used to a really long time ago.
Sure.
And
I sucked my thumb very late, by the way, and had a ton of stuffed animals. So, but I was a girl, so it's okay.
Exactly. I wasn't a
Yeah.
thumb sucker, but I was obsessed with my stuffed animals when I was a kid
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah.
But who cares? Because I'm a girl, so I'm allowed.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm allowed to, need comfort. Boys are not. And in fact, so so that's the first thing. Mikey wakes up, and then I think before we get to Mikey's dream, we get to the girls' bunk.
Yeah, they're putting toothpaste around their beds. Yeah.
That joke, which she's like 4 out of 5 doctors recommend it.
I did not laugh. No,
Come
I'm so
on.
sorry.
Which
No.
doctors? Yeah, which doctor?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
I do like, though, the childhood, like, superstition of it all.
Yeah.
Because I did stuff like that as a kid, for sure.
100%. I would like to have a Girl's Guide to Ghouls. I would like that book. Now, even.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that made sense. But this is where I wrote, don't they have bunks? Why are there only 3 of them? But yeah, that does happen before we see Zeke the Plumber pull the hippo out of the toilet.
Right. And that's a gross little image. I wonder if, I don't remember the first episode very well at all, and I have not rewatched it. I wonder if there is some explanation for why this camp, like maybe it's like a third-rate
Everyone
camp
died.
that's failing.
Everyone died and they just don't talk about it.
Exactly. I did read a theory on Reddit that we can get to at the end about what's going on with this camp that has some like Yellow Jackets vibes.
Nice.
So then we get Telly in the morning. She hasn't slept.
Right.
So
and she falls asleep at the table.
And we get her dream.
Yep. I wrote in all caps, she's trapped in girlhood.
She's a tomboy, though, unlike Joey Potter.
Yes, exactly. She wants to play ball, not go to a ball. Which
That's right.
Absolutely. Agreed.
But it is another one of those things where it's like her whole identity is kind of like she stakes her whole identity on not being into quote unquote girly stuff.
Girly stuff, yeah.
So it's cool that she's a tomboy and that she isn't just interested in, but we're at a point in culture where it is, if you're going to be a tomboy, you can also be interested in more feminine things.
No, absolutely not.
But it's funny that in any case here, the worst thing you can be considered is just like a girl who's into girl stuff, no matter your gender.
Yeah.
We hate women.
Yes, we do. Yeah. Yeah, girly things. No good. Mm-hmm. Shame.
Exactly. And then Budnick, the like punishment for him, because then they're like, all right, Budnick, if you think you're so tough,
oh yeah,
you spend a night out in the woods, and when you lose, you've got to tell everybody what a wuss you are, which again is shorthand for feminine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
Which, just like Mikey, is Mikey's biggest fear.
The patriarchy hurts men too.
Exactly. Yeah. We do get a little, again, brilliantly plotted show. We learn right early on that Budnick's biggest fear is spiders, because I think it's Donkey Lips. It's either Donkey Lips or Sponge puts a spider on his knee when they're telling the story, and he freaks out. So a little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yeah. No, I relate. I'm not as afraid of spiders as I used to be, but it is not one of my favorite things. I would not, especially the ones that have fat bodies. Like, not to turn this into another like rats versus snakes conversation, but like daddy long legs aren't scary, which is what most.
I feel about spiders the way you do about rats, except it's worse for me because you're very unlikely to encounter a rat in your home. Yes. But there's probably at least one spider. In fact, I'm underground right now. There's certainly at least one spider in this room with me right now.
You should become friends with him.
And I have to live with that, just knowing that.
Yeah. I should never show you then the picture of the spider that fell on my bed when I was at the residency in upstate New York, huh?
I'd prefer you didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't love them. I mean, I can look at a picture of a spider, but I can't.
This one, it's the fat body, the ones that really bother me. What's going on in there?
This is how you know what I have isn't a phobia. It's a very rational fear everybody should have, because I can look at a picture of a spider and be fine. But if I'm in a room with one...
But a daddy long legs isn't going to do anything to you.
It's going to be weird.
Their bodies are tiny little things.
Well, my biggest fear about bugs is them getting tangled in my hair, because I've always had such long hair. And a daddy long leg...
Yeah.
More than any other spider, maybe. What with the long legs.
But I disagree, actually. If you see how they move. Interesting.
I don't love a spider. I don't love a spider.
I only have
don't
problems with the
love a
biting
spider.
ones. The ones that don't bite,
again,
I don't care.
But how do you know? Oh, you would know.
Daddy long legs don't bite.
Not yet.
Not yet. They're going to evolve.
I think they do bite. They just can't pierce your skin.
Well, I've been around lots of them, and I've never been bitten by one.
Why have you been around lots of them?
Because I'm in the woods a lot.
Ugh,
They're everywhere.
God.
I don't mind them. I did when I was a child. When I was this age and I was at camp, I was horrified by them. But
I have a hard time differentiating between bugs in terms of my distaste for them. Like, I don't want anything near me. Like, I can't just be like, oh, it's just an ant. Like, I
have specific feelings about different kinds of bugs. I do differentiate. Yeah.
That's probably...
I don't love ants, but they don't freak me out. Some spiders are fine. Some spiders are not. Roaches are a hell no.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Never.
The only ones that don't stress me out are lightning bugs. Like, I'll catch a lightning
bug.
bug.
Oh, I love lightning bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I got to remember that they're kind of just beetles with glowing asses. But like a beetle, fuck you. Like anything that's going to buzz near my ear or anything that you can hear, like the way that like a beetle is stupid and will fly into shit and you can hear it like
a
thunking,
June bug.
Like a June bug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So you're not going to camp is what you're saying.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But these kids go to camp.
They do.
And then, I don't remember the order of this. I should have taken better notes, but there are two things that happen before we get to nighttime. One is Budnick demands a bunch of snacks that are provided. Mm-hmm. He's pissed off that the chips aren't the kinds with ruffles.
Yes.
But he gets chips and soda and a cooler and all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or before, either way, we find the kids plotting on how they're going to scare him while he's out in the woods, which doesn't feel fair to me in terms of the bet. Like, that is cheating, but whatever.
Yeah, but he's an asshole in this episode.
They're
not doing it for the bet. They're doing it just to be mean to him.
Right. Which he does kind of deserve. But then...
he's setting traps, though, for them.
Yeah, it's like Home Alone.
Yeah, he's setting booby traps
with
the things that he had them get for him.
Exactly.
The cooler, the sodas, the chips, it's all for the trapping.
Yeah, it's very Home Alone vibes to me.
Yeah.
But then it's so funny when they're planning. To me, the fact that Ugg, the friggin' camp counselor, comes in and wants to get in on it is so inappropriate and so funny.
So inappropriate.
Like, he like jumps up on the bed and is like...
That's a little... Maybe I'm just suspicious in general, but that's a little creepy. Like, that's a little...
Which?
Like, the camp counselor acting like one of the campers.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's not...
It's his job to be in charge.
Yeah.
And like, kids are going to be assholes, and as an adult, you have to deal with that. You can't then want to get revenge on the child.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the, like, arrested adolescent adult in these types of shows, but...
But he's got his own plan.
Yeah.
They also give Donkey Lips his job is to basically be a pumpkin head, which he can't see out of it, and at no point does he think that maybe he should take it off.
Or like poke holes in the eyes of the mask. Yeah.
But again, this is also setting something up for later.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
this is not Shakespeare, though. You're making it sound like...
I don't know.
It's like, so carefully plotted. It's like, oh, they introduced the pumpkin head and then it pays off.
In act 2.
That's how storytelling is supposed to happen.
Yeah, it's fascinating that they did this.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really thoughtful.
Okay.
Thoughtful plot construction.
Sure.
And then, stuff happens. He's scared in the woods. They're all running around doing their stuff.
Yeah, they're trying to scare him, and he's like, yeah, no, it's not working. And then, they're not good at scaring. They literally come out of the woods and yell at him.
Yeah.
It's like...
And it obviously doesn't work.
Yeah. Although, the quote-unquote ghosts that some of them bring out, they looked weirdly like KKK cross-adjacent.
Oh.
I was like, guys, be
a
little more careful with your
you gotta
symbolism.
be...
But
you really gotta be thoughtful about that kind of thing. They were too busy being thoughtful about Pumpkinhead.
Yeah. But then Ugg finally does.
Whoa! Zeke the Plumber shows up.
Sorry. Zeke the Plumber shows up.
And he's very scary, and he speaks inappropriately to this child.
Yes.
But Budnick doesn't fall for it because he Zeke says, like, I can smell your fear. And Budnick lures him into a trap, hangs him upside down, pulls the mask off.
Hangs him upside down, I will add, for way too long.
Yeah, he should be dead.
He should be dead. That's not healthy to hang upside down for that long of a period of time.
Yeah. They all make but so he hangs him upside down. I did read that apparently the actor, every time, because they'd have to hang him upside down for, obviously not all night, but for more than 15 seconds. And every time they take him down, he would throw up, because that is not ideal to be hanging upside down that long.
No, not at all.
And then Budnick is like on his way back, and he runs through a spider's web. And that's the thing that finally gets him.
Which, as somebody who's done a fair amount of hiking, you just carry a stick. And you wave the stick in front of you, and it gets the spider webs out of the way.
Why would you ever want to do something where you have to do that to live, to exist? I just don't understand it.
Nature is healing.
Is it?
Yeah.
And
but you just need a stick, so you don't walk into the spider webs. Every hiker knows this.
God.
Just wave it around if you got a lot of spider webs in the area.
Awful. But he cries like a big baby about it. They finally rescue him. He's already agreed to be their slave, to do whatever they want, to admit everything bad he's done at camp, blah, blah, blah. They saddle him with all their stuff and go back to camp. He goes back to camp. And then in the morning when, and I said Home Alone vibes, so maybe that's why it was in my head. But the way he's like, I'm going to kill him. Budnick, I'm going to kill him. He is so serious about it. It reminds me of like Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern in Home Alone, when they're like, you're like, oh yeah, if you think about it, Home Alone is about two grown men trying to
murder a child.
Actually murder a child.
Yep.
Like,
true.
That's what they're trying to do. They want to kill that little boy.
Yep.
And I think Ugg would kill Budnick if he could get his hands on him in that moment.
In that moment, yes, definitely.
But then we get the very funny reveal of Donkey Lips. I think the very funny reveal. The Donkey Lips has just been wandering around all night with that mask on. It's never occurred to him to take it off.
Yeah. There's just, there's some very 90s like fat shaming in this that was kind of a discordant. Yeah,
I mean, we've talked a lot about how we are just kind of, we were just sort of fine with all of that in the 90s.
Yeah.
But like it's even like internalized fat shaming, because when Donkey Lips says like, cross my heart, hope to die, stick a pizza in my mouth.
Yep.
It's like, you didn't have to.
Nope.
There's no reason for that.
Nope. Just to be fat shamey.
Mm-hmm. But we were fine with fat shaming, and also calling people wusses. Like, we were just, we were fine with all that.
Exactly.
So that's the episode. Mm-hmm. I will say, we'll talk way more about this with I Saw the TV Glow. Mm-hmm. The reason when I said to you, like, we have to do this over Goosebumps, what I want to put a pin in is Zeke himself as something that I was genuinely terrified of as a child. Like a real fear of mine.
Right.
Not in like a, I see that this is silly way, but like in a way that it really did stick with me as a young person. Mm-hmm. And your reaction to it now as an adult encountering it and being like, this doesn't make sense. Why does he have a nose?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have different reactions when we're kids to these things. Like, I had things that I will never forget like that also, but they were movies about ships going down, apparently. Yeah. And I mean, I avoided horror movies when I was a kid because I was terrified of them. But I don't think there was a lot of children's, I probably am wrong about this, but I feel like there wasn't a lot of children's television that was in the like scare the kids kind of vein 10 years before this. Like, I'm trying to think of anything that would have fit that.
I really think, I mean, I did some reading on it last week for Are You Afraid of the Dark? And no, the answer is kind of no. That like really, Are You Afraid of the Dark was the first really focused on it.
Because the stuff I read to scare myself as a kid was adult stuff. Exactly. With Stephen King, you know, like, or Tales from the Crypt or something that was not geared towards me as a 10-year-old child. Exactly.
I really think it was like the Goosebumps book series, especially for younger kids, because obviously like Christopher Pike and and that kind of thing. But that was way more for like teenagers. But for young kids, it was like Goosebumps, and Are You Afraid of the Dark? And then one-off episodes like this. But even like Salute Your Shorts isn't. This is the only scary episode,
right?
But yeah, no, there wasn't a ton.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's definitely not an experience of my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of like kids TV that's geared towards like ghost stories and things like that.
It has, yeah, and it's so foundational to me as a person was this kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think we like found things to be afraid of. Like I think about like I love Pee Wee Herman so much. And then Pee Wee's Big Adventure, like Large Marge was terrifying for me.
Large Marge was scary.
And like Pee Wee's Big
like,
Adventure
legitimately.
isn't like but Pee Wee's Big Adventure isn't really a movie specifically for kids. There were a lot of things like that where I would be afraid of something.
Yeah.
Or like the opening scene for Edward Scissorhands when that man dies was my introduction to death. When his inventor dies.
Oh my God.
Was literally my introduction to death. And so like I still have fear.
This explains so much.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you're probably right.
It's just such a weird introduction.
But I remember being like, I remember asking my mom, is that what you look like when you die? Like it was really like a big, and so, but again, that wasn't the intention of that movie, wasn't to scare children and make them come face to face with the idea of death. So like, you kind of had to find things unintentionally to frighten you as a child before this kind of thing.
I was deathly afraid of our garage.
Yeah, that's a good, that makes sense.
It had broken windows.
Ooh, yeah, that is scary.
My mom says we lived in an apartment on the second floor in Hackensack, and our garage, again, had broken windows. And I would apparently stand in the window of our apartment and stare at it just in absolute terror.
But you have to keep your eye on it to make sure
nothing happens. Exactly. Yeah.
I was that same way, but I think it was because I had all of this stuff as a young child. I wonder how fearful I would have been as a child without all of this. Yeah,
because I don't have any origin for where that like fearful nature came from. I just was afraid of everything. Mm-hmm. Huh. I'll bring that up in therapy next week.
Yeah. It's funny because some kids aren't fearful children. Like, I just was.
I was too, for sure. Yeah.
And I grew up with my cousin like in the same house, and he's not afraid of anything, though he terrorized me. So maybe that's where the fear comes from.
Maybe. Yeah, I also what I did enjoy about watching this was it's almost like playing like one of those image search games where you're like, find the spinning compass, find the Blair Witch reference, find the, there were all sorts of little nods to other things we've talked about.
Yeah.
The spooky tree. I really wanted that tree to be haunted, like the devil's tree.
Like the devil's tree, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
that
but
could be our Jersey
no such luck.
Mm-mm.
No, we have a real one. We have a real Jersey connection.
Oh, that's right. Do you want to share that with our listeners?
Yeah. So we were trying to figure out if there was anything, and I found a connection to New Jersey in the form of a ska punk band, which is fucking perfect. Awful Waffle is a ska punk band that was formed in Brick in New Jersey in 2006. Yeah, and that's a reference to a prank of the same name from the episode First Day.
Yeah, and I think Awful Waffle comes back throughout. Awful Waffle is one of those things I still think of, and it's when you cover somebody's belly in syrup and then slap them with a tennis racket. So, like, picture what a waffle looks like.
Yeah, though. No.
I mean, kids are awful. Kids are awful waffles, you know?
That's terrible.
That is a hard one to make rhyme in my Jersey. Awful.
I know.
Awful
waffle.
Awful waffle.
Waffle.
Awful waffle. Do people say awful? Awful?
Awful. Yeah.
Awful.
Awful.
Awful waffle. Awful. Yeah, okay.
Awful waffle.
Awful waffle.
Okay.
It doesn't rhyme for me.
Awful waffle. No, it doesn't rhyme for me either.
But
really.
I think for them it does. Awful waffle. Awful waffle. Waffle. Okay.
There's
this is great for our listeners.
Yeah, this is great. There's a drink in Rhode Island, a milkshake called an Awful Awful. It's awfully big and it's awfully good. It's an Awful Awful.
That's cute.
They sell it at Newport Creamery.
I love that. That is our second week in a row where a Jersey connection is a band.
Which I love.
In some way inspired by,
Yeah, for people that don't know, the Jersey music scene, especially in the 90s, was a huge deal. And like, I used to go to ska shows in the 90s.
Oh yeah. I used to go in the early to mid aughts. Shout out SGR, shout out Dirty Larry, shout out Awful Waffle. A band I haven't seen, but they've played with plenty of ska bands that I know today. That's the other thing, listeners, if you're not into the like indie, not indie as a genre, indie as an independent or like the smaller music scene, ska is back in a big way. Like,
I've heard tell of such a thing.
Yeah, it's
I was
nuts.
trying to remember names of some of the bands I saw. The only one that comes to mind is Skavuvi and the Epitones.
Great name.
Yeah. But other than that, I know there were plenty of them, but that is the one that I remember. Yeah.
Is that it?
I feel like we covered it. I didn't think this was going to be a super long one because it's a short episode. It's kind of like, it hits a lot of the notes that we talked about. And I think it's like, it's interesting in that conversation of like levels of seriousness too. Like this plays the ghost story is very jokey. Are You Afraid of the Dark plays it a little bit more seriously, even though it's very kid-like serious, you know? And then like a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in the past has been like the adult scary version of this, you know, like Blair Witch, like Yellow Jackets. Side note, yes, we did see that Joel McHale is joining the cast of Yellow Jackets for season 3.
Heck.
Is he Cabin Guy?
It's got to be Jason Ritter, right?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's a different storyline that they didn't, that we don't even know about. I feel like people that watch that show as ardently as we do think we know everything that could possibly happen, and we don't. There are writers in that room that have ideas that we haven't thought of.
Yeah, I guess we did just kind of decide that that's what was going on there.
That was literally like people on Reddit being like, this is what that is.
Yeah.
And we were all like, yep, okay.
You're right.
And like, maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. Who knows? But yeah, Joel McHale.
It's funny how much stuff we've just decided. You're really so right about that.
Yeah, so much of it is like the Reddit consensus.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So that's exciting. Joel McHale, the chef from The Bear. Just that character, but on Yellow Jackets. He comes in to like tell them they're cooking each other wrong.
What if?
He gives them, he trains them on how to properly cook human people.
I would love that.
That's his role. He comes in a full chef outfit.
It would be...
Excuse me, girls.
It would be really interesting.
Who taught you how to do this? You're going to get a Michelin star at this rate. Sorry, I'll let you talk.
No, it would just be very interesting to see him play something outside of that character, because it is, I mean, I love him playing that character because he's so good at it, but
even in other things that he's been in that he's really well known for, like Community, he's just always like a smart alecky or like kind of mean, handsome.
Well, he's even the lead in that show. Is it called Animal Control? And he's the lead, and he's still smug, kind of an asshole, but likable because he's so charming.
Right.
And so it would be interesting.
Yeah, that's
to
what
see
he
him do
almost
something
always
else.
seems to play. So yeah, I would love to see him totally like flip it around. That would be great.
And again, just to check in now, you're not feeling any more peace about your time at summer camp after this?
I'm really not. This didn't help.
I'm so sorry.
I don't know that it hurt that much.
But it did a little.
Help. Maybe a little. It didn't help, though.
Well, the good news is we're leaving camp.
Thank God. And we're going to Jersey.
Theoretically. It is never... We can talk so much about Jersey next week. I'm so excited. I am so excited.
Oh, boy. Tell us about next week.
It's Pete and Pete. It's Pete and Pete week.
Yes.
This is everything.
And we're doing it a little bit differently, right?
Yeah, so I'm asking us to watch 2 episodes. Because I love Pete and Pete. And to be honest, maybe that's not the main reason. But I was so torn between the two episodes that I wanted us to watch.
Yeah.
They're two. Pete and Pete is like kind of perfect across the board. I think it's a perfect show, but the two episodes I've picked are categorically two of the best show, you know?
Okay.
So here's the thing though, is Pete and Pete, heartbreakingly, is not there's no above board way to watch Pete and Pete.
Right.
You can pirate pretty good quality versions if that's your thing. They're also on YouTube. I will say the quality isn't so good. One episode, it's much worse than the other. So the first one we're going to watch is What We Did on Our Summer Vacation, which is technically a special that aired before season 1. So Pete and Pete started as a series of shorts before it became a dedicated show. And this is one of the shorts. But I'm not even going to tell you why. We have to watch What We Did on Our Summer Vacation.
Okay.
And I'll link to the one that I found that the quality is the best in. It's only 24 minutes. And it's not terrible quality. Like it's not like you can't see it. You know what I mean?
We watched like Times Square. We watched things from like the early 80s that were
That's a good point.
Not great. I mean, for fuck's sake, Dawson's Creek looks terrible now in comparison to TV shows that are on at the moment.
You know what? That's a really good point. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And I'm so excited for people who haven't seen this show to watch it. It's just the best. You said we're going to Jersey. I will say it's set in a fictional town that is never outright, we'll talk more about it next week, outright stated in the show as being New Jersey, but it 100% is New Jersey. And the creator will tell you that. It's filmed in New Jersey.
And it's filmed in my part of Jersey.
Half of the actors are from New Jersey.
Yeah.
So it's such a Jersey show.
It was filmed largely in Leonia. They filmed at the Willowbrook Mall. They filmed in Cranford. They filmed at Bayonne High School.
Save it for next week.
No, I'm so excited I can't.
So that's the first episode we're watching is What We Did on Our Summer Vacation. And then the next episode we're watching is my favorite episode of Pete and Pete, one of my favorite episodes of television ever. And it's season 1. This is season 1, episode 13. I guess that's right. Doesn't matter. I'll link to it. Hard Days Pete.
Okay.
And I'm not going to tell you anything about either of them. We're going to have plenty to talk about next week as well. And I can't wait.
Also, if you are a Pete and Pete fan and you are not a New Jersey is the World subscriber, there was an interview with Danny Tamborelli, conducted by Geth and my illustrious co-host, Andrea Quinn.
True. I cannot tell you the true highlight of my life. I have never asked to sit in on an interview for New Jersey. I have been part of interviews for New Jersey is the World. Usually they're ones that I organize. In general, I do not ask to sit in on episodes that aren't my thing. Usually Geth does the interviews on his own for the most part.
Yeah.
When I found out that Danny Tamborelli was going to do the podcast. And he and Geth are friendly.
Even though he's from Bergen County.
I know, it's really brave. But I think it's because they met in New York. So it's one of those things. It's like it doesn't matter where you're from in Jersey. If you meet outside of Jersey, you're immediately friends.
But he is fully Bergen County.
Oh,
he was raised in Maywood, lived in Wyckoff, went to Rampo High School. Like,
you can hear it.
Yeah, he's Bergen County.
And despite that, he's lovely. But I did message Geth and I said, I almost don't want this on mic. But I said, like, you have to let me sit in. I promise I'll be so normal. And I was. And also, he and his wife, Kate Detweiler, write together. She's a literary agent and a writer in her own right, and she's great. But they've written a couple of really lovely, fun rom-coms. So if you like a lovely, fun rom-com, the book that they were on to talk about was The Road Trip Rewind, and it's about a Jersey guy and a girl who gets. It's perfect, honestly. It's such a. I may have recommended it after we talked to Danny because it's so perfect for. I'll bet for a lot of our listeners because they get thrown back into the 90s. It's a really fun book. I'll link to that as well. And he was lovely, but because they were promoting the book, we didn't talk too much about Pete and Pete, though we did a little bit because you have to. But that's a really fun interview. He was really lovely, and so is Kate. They were great guests.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And
it'll be fun.
True highlight of my life. is getting to interview Danny Tamborelli.
Yeah, no, that was really I could tell how excited you were. you held it together, but
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So
what we did
that
on
is your assignment for next week.
Hard Days Pete. Links are in the show notes, but if you go to YouTube, they'll be the first ones that come up, but I'll link to them just to make sure. Maybe they won't be the first ones that come up for you because you haven't watched them all on YouTube like I have. I don't know. It's the best. I can't wait. Any recommendations for folks?
Oh, well, we didn't do a Dawson's Creek corner.
Oh, yeah. How are we doing? Where are we at?
We are at close to the end of season 4. Mm-hmm. So Joey and Pacey finally had sex, and Joey is still being annoying about it. Less so, but seriously, like, come on now. I feel like we're about to have a pregnancy scare because, of course, I just by the title of the next episode that I haven't watched yet, which is Late, which, like, can't a woman have sex and not have regrets or have a pregnancy scare? What the fuck?
No.
Why?
No, because it's shameful, Jodie.
Good God. I mean, it's like, it's so predictable. It's so predictable. Joey just confronted her dad, who was like
the kingpin of Cape Side?
I'm sorry, I said Joey. I didn't mean Joey. I meant Jen's dad. She goes to New York to confront her dad.
Oh, right.
With Joey. I don't know why I said Joey. Ignore that. But yeah, Jen confronts her dad about sleeping with a teenager.
I thought you were talking about, and this is much earlier, we've never talked about the fact that at one point Joey wears a wire.
Yes, we did talk about the fact that her dad is like a kingpin, but we didn't talk about the wire.
He's like trafficking in literal tons of marijuana.
Yeah. But no, Jen goes to confront her dad in the city.
That's right.
Joey goes with her. Pacey is sort of like in that phase where he's like, I'm never going to go anywhere. He gets drunk with Drew at a bar. Mm-hmm. It's like, of course. And Dawson and what is with the younger men and older women thing on this show? I have to know. Gretchen and Dawson, I'm just grossed out. I do not want to see him kissing anyone. I really don't. And I feel bad because there's nothing wrong with James Vanderbeek, but this character is like such a drip that every time they have him make out with someone, I just want to throw up. I'm sorry. I've said this about the teacher too. If you are a 20, 21, 22-year-old, whatever, college dropout, you are not developing a crush on a 17-year-old high school senior.
No, you're not.
And if you are, that is a problem.
Yeah. It's, we really just kind of...
Oh, and Dawson's paying for Joey's education now? Because the guy left him a bunch of money? The guy that he had to decide to unplug his life support? Uh-huh. Jesus Christ.
That was one of the texts you sent me, buried in a million texts, was like, so we're just letting the high schooler make end of life care decisions about this man?
That's like, can't be legal. It can't be legal.
No.
Absolutely not.
Cape Side really is in another reality.
Yes.
You just have to let these things happen.
I'm on season 4, episode 19.
This is so exciting.
Yeah. Just whenever I have the downtime, which is going to be happening less and less, but well,
you don't have too much further to go. So
yeah, there's how many left in this? I've got 5 episodes left in season 4. And then there's still season 5 and 6. I've got quite a bit left. Season 5 is 23 episodes, and season 6 is probably also...
Well, yeah, you've watched like 100 though at this point, right? So,
good God, don't tell me that. I'm in denial that this is how I'm in denial that this is how I've been spending my time.
This is how you spent your summer vacation, and we're about to learn how Pete and Pete spent theirs.
God, a professional, ladies and gentlemen.
Much. Thank you so much.
Where can they find us?
We're at WatchersPodNJ on Instagram.
And you can email us at watcherspodnj@gmail.com.
I'm so glad you said that. We got such a lovely email from listener Melissa, who had some fun updates about Kevin Smith in LA specifically. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know about Gallery 1988, but they're like a pop culture art space, and they I don't know if they still do, but they used to do this thing called Crazy for Cult every year. That was just a different collection of different artists submitting for different cult favorites with like art inspired by that was such an inside out way to say that, and I'm not going to fix it in the edit. And Kevin Smith has run it a couple of times, and so they went out to see that. But the most important part of this email, Jodie, is on a separate topic. Jodie, I am on season 4 of 6 Feet Under.
Hell yeah.
I hope Michael C. Hall was at least nominated for an Emmy for this season. Episodes 5 and 6 were just an emotional roller coaster.
He goes through so much.
Yeah.
I swear to God. Yeah, no, they put him through the ringer in this show. He was nominated once in 2002. I don't know if which season that was for, but he did not win. But he was nominated. But yeah, man, there's a specific episode, and I can't remember what season it is. Hold on. That might be where our emailer is at right now. I just started to type in carjacking 6 Feet Under because that's the episode. And instead, one of the things that came up was carjacking Six Flags, New Jersey.
Yeah, it was a baboon in the Adventure Safari.
Yeah. Yeah, the episode's called...
Hold on. Don't just say yeah. That's a great joke.
Sorry, I was distracted by looking for the episode of 6 Feet Under. It's the episode is That's My Dog. Yeah. Yeah, he's carjacked and like tortured. It's brutal. Brutal. And I don't know if that was what he was nominated for.
Is that what turned him into a serial killer?
Probably.
Hurt people.
Yeah, exactly. So That's My Dog. When did that come out? No one cares about this, but I do. That's My Dog. Episode. Air. Date. Let's see. Oh, nope. That was in 2004. So he was nominated before that, probably like season 2-ish. But yeah, he should have been nominated for that because the way that he depicts trauma, like literally for the rest of the series, he's not the same. Like they don't write it off as like, oh, this traumatic experience happened and then he has this reaction to it and now we're on to the next story. Like all of his decisions are impacted by that for the rest of the series, which they would be. Right.
Which isn't always...
Yeah.
It's not always handled that way in TV shows. So that's
Did
cool.
this emailer leave their name?
Yeah, it's Melissa. It's one of our Melissas.
It's one of our Melissas, yeah. Melissa, I want you to write back after you've watched the finale. After you're done sobbing. And tell us your take on the whole series. Once you've stopped crying. But I need to hear somebody who hasn't seen the finale's reaction to it.
Gotcha. That's good to know.
Just watch it when you need a good cry.
We also got a really nice message on Instagram. I guess I could be sharing these with you off mic, Jodie, but we're here. From Lauren, who's one of our New Jersey is the World listeners. So I already know who Lauren is. And Lauren has just started listening, but hasn't watched Yellow Jackets. So she's going through our movie episodes.
The movies, yeah.
She said we're doing all the movies of her formative years. But she said, I've never met anyone outside of the girls I grew up with who have even heard of Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Jodie, I feel seen.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that I think I might have mentioned it on that episode, but that movie was one of the first things that bonded my best friend and I, because when you meet someone who knows that movie really well, you're just like, oh, you grew up just like I did, whatever that means. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I feel like you and I kind of had the same thing with Better Off Dead. I feel like that's sort of the thing that really... I know Yellow Jackets is the thing, but I feel like Better Off Dead is really the thing that we were like...
Well, it was Better Off Dead and something else that you said were your two top movies. And I was
my God. I said Better Off Dead. What I meant to say
was Real Genius. Yes.
But Better Off Dead also, but I think Real Genius is really the one.
Was the thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
And also, Lauren suggested a movie... covering a movie that you and I have not talked about, and I'm not going to throw it out here, but I do want to have a discussion about it off mic. So, Lauren, stay tuned for that. I will say we've got plans pretty locked in for
the next few months,
the next couple of months, but we'll have to get back to movies eventually.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to put a pin in that one, Lauren, for sure.
Okay. I'm excited to hear more. So, yeah, I think we covered where they can find the podcast. They can find me at Instagram, on Instagram, at Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM.
And I'm at AQ Andrea Q. You know what I've been thinking about a lot this week?
What have you been thinking about?
Melanie Linsky was in Heavenly Creatures. Mm-hmm. She is on Yellow Jackets. Mm-hmm. Why do we do that?
Why do we do what?
Juliette Lewis was in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Oh! She is on Yellow Jackets.
Interesting. Is it an inline online thing?
I was just going to ask you, is it an inline? But it's not an inline online thing
it's not.
Because we all say, and I guess you can say in Yellow Jackets, but we mostly don't.
No.
We mostly say on for TV and we only say in for movies. You would never say she was on What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Welcome to our linguistics podcast, where we talk about the etymology of jabroni and the way that we refer to casting.
What's up with that?
I don't know. I am still an online person, though.
Yeah, you would be.
Yeah.
That sounds like an insult, but you would be. You're from online land.
I am. And most people have no idea what the fuck we're talking about, so we should probably go. But we will see you next week in technically maybe not Jersey, but actually Jersey.
Definitely Jersey, but maybe not
literally Jersey, but
also literally
actually
Jersey.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.